Hey, what's going on, family? Welcome to another episode of The Finance Bro. We have real conversations with real people about money. Today, I have no other than one of my Neos on here, the Cameron Kinley. This guy's done so many special things in his life already, and he's a huge leader and mentor within his community. And, even within his peer group, he leads up as well as down. And that's what, it's great to have special people in your group or in your circle like this, because it gives you hope that, things will continue to be successful. So before we get too far into this, Cam, go ahead and introduce yourself to everyone. Let them know, what you do, where you from, etc. And then we'll jump into it from there.
Nah, most definitely, man. I appreciate you for having me pro fight. You know what I'm saying? We just try to get this together. So I'm excited to be on here, man. Proud of everything you're doing. Cameron Kinley, from Memphis, Tennessee, born and raised in the M. That's big Memphis, Yo Gotti, Dolph. Glorilla now, Money Bad. We got a lot of the music game, but yeah, grew up in Memphis, 3-sport athlete, football, basketball, and track. Was fortunate to get some scholarships to play football. Was deciding between Princeton, Yale, Air Force, and Navy, and then got on the Academy's campus. And I just felt like the Naval Academy was for me. So I went to the Naval Academy, majored in political science. I was class president there, team captain of the football team, played corner, started like 23 games or something like that. And then after I graduated from the academy, I signed with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I also commissioned as an officer, an intelligence officer. So definitely been blessed, definitely been a journey, but definitely exciting stuff.
Hey, you left a few accolades out of there. Weren't you the first to do a couple things in the academy?
Yes, I was fifth African American in the academy history to become class president, first football player to do so since at least 1990. You know what I'm saying?
That's a big bar.
You know what I'm saying? But yeah, I was a finalist for the academic Heisman. One of 8 finalists for that, so that was pretty good. Got an $18,000 scholarship. So I've been fortunate, been able to achieve some things, but it definitely didn't happen overnight.
Yeah,
definitely didn't happen overnight,
man. So now I hope you all are excited to hear where this conversation goes. Like it's a lot of experience from my brother here. So, jumping into it, you spoke about being in the NFL. So that's an interesting experience that 99% of Americans will never have. Right.
Right.
And, what was that journey like for you going from, a young Black kid in Memphis to going to the Naval Academy to jumping into the NFL where, these guys are making you around people making millions of dollars a year. There's different expectations when it comes to money. People,
right.
Handle their money a little differently. What was that like to you? Because I feel like for me, that would have been a shock.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, right? I had the dream of playing in the NFL since I was 4, but when I got to the academy, I really wasn't focused on it until I saw it to be an opportunity. And I'll never forget, I was undrafted free agent, so I had a little bit of change on my signing bonus. But we all the rookies went up there and got our signing bonuses at the same time. And our first round draft pick, man, he got a check for $9 million. $9 million. I'm like, man, here goes somebody my same age, 23 years old, getting $9 million. That's after taxes, right? And so I'm like, man, what? And so money, honestly, to those professional athletes, money is nothing, right? Like money is the last thing on their mind. And I think when you do, what that taught me was like, when money's not an issue, you do have the ability to focus on your craft more, right? So you don't see them stressing about, oh, what I'm gonna eat, paying bills, cars. You know what I'm saying? They're not stressing about any of that. They're focusing on playing football. They're focused on becoming a better athlete, focused on becoming a better father, whatever that might be, because money's not an issue. But that can also be bad, right? When you come across that much money, because now you got people expecting things from you. And of course, I'm all for giving back, being generous, but it's almost like you can be guilt trapped into feeling like you owe a lot of people, oh, I made it here. I got all this money. Let me go buy them a house, buy them a house, buy them a car, buy them a car. Now you look up, you ain't been managing your money right, and you ain't got nothing. And it's like, oh snap, where did all those millions go? And so I think, like, from outside perspective in, like, 9 million, that's a lot to me.
Yeah.
But to some of those athletes, that's
dropping the bucket.
Which is crazy to say.
Man, that's crazy. So being there, being a rookie, did you see any financial practices that made you like raise an eyebrow, like, oh, I don't know if I'd be doing that?
Yeah, I
Besides, like,
mean,
people buying, houses and trying to take care of people, but
yeah.
just on a day-to-day basis, like things that it's like, yo, bro, I know you're making a lot of money, but I don't know if I do that.
Yeah, I mean, you'll see people buying like the chains and stuff, custom pendant, customizing the car. So it's like, I get it, right? Because you've been working hard to get to that point. So I do think you owe yourself a little bit of reward.
Mm-hmm.
But at some point, you also got to be like, okay, how about I make this reward for when I sign another contract? You know what I'm saying? Like, I believe every professional athlete, when you do get that contract, you should gift yourself, right? You should go get yourself something because you worked hard for that. But you should also set boundaries to where it's like, okay, this is my gift for my rookie contract. All right, this is when I re-sign in 2 years. This is when I re-sign in 4 years. Like, everything should be a landmark. That way you're not spending all your money up front. Because we know how temporary the game is, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can get hurt, get cut, or you can just get cut and get replaced. And then it's like, now you don't have that same financial budget that you had before.
Yeah.
And I think that was like the biggest transition for me, going into the NFL, thinking that like, okay, I signed a $2.1 million contract. Like, that's a different lifestyle than the 01 check in the Navy.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
That's a very different lifestyle.
It's a whole, you in a whole different tax bracket. And so that was hard for me. Like, I definitely approached that wrong, assuming that I'd be coming across this amount of money. And then some of us know, I came across some bad circumstances and things didn't go the way that I wanted them to go. And then I ended up in a situation where it was like, oh, snap. Like, I got to change everything, right? But I believe if you go ahead and go in with the mindset of like, okay, yeah, I might be making, let's say, $720,000 a year, but I don't need to live off $720,000 as a 23-year-old, right? You can live off 60,000 easy.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, easy, right? And so when you have that mindset, like, yeah, treat yourself every now and then, but like in 10 years, you'll be looking back like, man, I'm glad I did that. But everybody wants to live off, honestly, if they got a 720,000, they're trying to live off $1 million, right? Because everybody want to show the money. But yeah, it's different approaches to it.
And do you think there's a large aspect of, instead of that, like, people try to show their success through the purchase of material things, and do you think there's a large focus on material things in professional environments?
Well, I think that's a society thing, right? Because in the professional environment, it's like, I mean, they honestly got it, right? Like,
yeah,
a lot of the stuff that we praise is not hurting them to buy. And so I think what happens is you see these professional athletes, these celebrities, you see them wearing this designer, driving this car, having this chain, this kind of watch, right? And when you're not in those positions, you see that and it's like, oh, I need to get one of those to be rich, right? I need to get one of those to look wealthy. And so majority of society who don't experience those paychecks, they're willing to sacrifice majority of their paycheck to buy some of those items just so other people think that they are making that money. And it's crazy. Like, everybody's so quick to show their money, quick to appear wealthy, quick to appear rich, when in reality, that's just not the lifestyle they're living. And I've been guilty of that before. Like, I'm not just pointing the finger to other people, but I'm in a space now to where, look, I don't care. I don't have to throw on some designer to look good, right? If I can't buy it twice, I don't need to buy it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But I don't think we're there as a society right now. I think a lot of people want to show their money rather than keeping it in the bank and being able to compound it over time.
For the rookies coming in, do they have programs, or is there anything there that, like, where people are teaching, these young guys, to encouraging them to think about the future? Because, one of the things that I read a lot is how these professional athletes end up being broke, bankrupt after their term is done with being a professional athlete, due to the poor financial decisions that they made while in the league. And it's kind of one of those things where you sit back and wonder, like, hey, if you've seen everyone else do this,
right,
why doesn't the change right? But I was 23 once too, and I'm gonna tell you right now, it would have been very easy seeing all those zeros to forget about.
You think it's unlimited?
Yeah, and I think it gets very difficult to think about the future if there's not something that's constantly there to ground you.
Yeah. We have, so they have what they call Ricky Academy, and you go through all the stuff like financial development planning, like personal development planning, family. So the resources are there, but that's not enough in my point of view, because it's just like going to class, right? Some people are gonna check the box, some people not. Like, I think every professional athlete in their rookie season should have like a personal financial person. But the issue is
like a financial coach.
Yeah, exactly. A personal financial coach. But the issue is a lot of those guys don't trust them, right? Because you're coming across all this money. Now you meeting somebody probably for the first time, honestly, and they're like, hey, let me manage the money for you. And you're like, nah. So what do? You go to your family who you trust more. But truth be told, a lot of these players that you hear going bankrupt is because of their family, right? Because they're constantly giving. And like, I get it. Everybody wants to get mama a new house. Everybody wants to get dad a new truck. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
I get it. But at the end of the day, over time, that little $500 you send to your cousin here, or that little quick 1,000 you send to your auntie here, over time, that stuff, like, you're not getting a return on investment of that, right? Like, one of the biggest quotes that I remember in one of our financial class was like, once you give money away, it's gone. Like, there's no loaning money, right?
Yeah.
Like, when you say you're gonna give somebody some money, just give it to them. There's no such thing as loaning, right? Unless it's coming from a bank where they actually have you under certain agreements. But like, when you personally give somebody money, it's not a loan. Like, that money's gone.
Yeah.
And so I think that's where a lot of the athletes come up short. And it's in their heart. They just want to give back, but they gotta have somebody who's not related to them. Like, hey, look, I know you want to give back to so-and-so, like, but check this out. If you do this for this amount of years, you'll be able to give them that, and you'll have 10 times what you already have right now. But it's not a lot of that going on.
So now, what was the transition like? Because we talked about the transition, the difference between being an 01 in the Navy and being in the NFL, right? So then on the flip side, how did you have to adjust with your, mentally and with your personal finances in order to adjust back from being on that kind of elevated lifestyle to going back to, the military lifestyle where people think that you're rich, but it actually ain't that great.
Yeah, now I had to swallow my pride. And it took a while, right? I had to swallow my pride, had to really work on my humility, because you go from being a part of that, like you said, like less than 2%, right? You're living this certain lifestyle. As soon as you say you're in the NFL, people think you're rich. Like, people still think I'm rich when I say I played in the NFL. I'm like, man, I didn't see that contract. But yeah, like, a lot of people don't even understand how that contract stuff works. But it took a while, and it was mentally tough for me, because as a 23-year-old having the opportunity to come across millions, like, come on now, everybody doesn't get that chance. And so I'm thinking about, like, money wasn't the issue when I was playing football. And then when I got back into the military, now it's a thing again, right? And when you don't adapt your habits to that, then you can start digging yourself in a financial hole. And that's what I did, right? When I was playing football, I'm spending carelessly, because I'm like, oh, I'm making the team. Like, I'm gonna be bringing in 18,000 a week, 20,000 a week, whatever it was, right? And I'm like, I'm not worried about this little $500 purchase. Oh, them shoes, let me get that. Like, this cologne, let me get that. Like, oh, you want food? It's on me. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Now looking back, I'm like, man, I should have been a penny pincher. And so, yeah, that's the biggest thing, man. I had to change my habits, change my mindset, like, swallow my pride, be humble. Like, look, you don't live that lifestyle, right? So don't stop trying to act like you live it. Stop trying to act like you was paid a lot, like you some superstar. You know what I'm saying? Like, I had to really just have a conversation with myself. Like, look, relax, live regular right now. Later on down the road, you'll be able to see all that pay off. But it was hard. It was definitely hard.
Was there ever a worry with that adjustment, and you just, because that's not, first off, that's not a very easy conversation to have with yourself, right? Like, that's the first thing, is being able to even identify that stuff is an issue and that it needs to be worked on. That's a huge step. But secondly, do you feel like there was a huge piece of you that didn't want to make the change because you were worried about what people would think? Like when they, people had this elevated belief of you and like what you should be doing. And if you decided to lock in and really hone in and like put yourself in a sustainable position that'll get you where you need to be in the future, people would ask questions and make judgments and things of that nature. Was that a worry for you?
1,000%, 1,000%. I consider myself to be an underdog most of my life. And so when I made it to the NFL, it was like, I'm finally getting the respect I deserve, right?
Yeah,
I'm finally getting the attention I deserve. Like, I felt like all that stuff was owed to me, right? Like, I'm like, it's about time I reap it. And then, I got everybody supporting me. And then when I got cut, it was like, man, I could count on my hands how many people I was talking to, right? How many people were still in my corner. And that was hard. That was hard for me to go from being up here to down here after putting in years of work to get up here, especially when the situation, there were some obstacles in the situation that could have been avoided that might have helped me in my favor. And so it was developing the perspective that, things happen to you in life and things are going to happen. It doesn't matter who you are, but you can't control what happens to you. You can only control how you respond to it. And it takes a strong mindset to really adopt that, because when you got everything going, in your favor, it's easy to be happy. It's easy to know right from wrong. It's easy to do the right thing. But when your back's up against the wall and everything's not going in your favor, it's like, who are you? Because that's who you truly are. So yeah, it wasn't easy, right? And that's why I said I had to have a conversation with myself. Like, look, Cameron, like, you gotta really look inside at your values right now. Like, where are you spending your energy? Where are you spending your money? Like, what are you trying to do? Like, who are you trying to portray? Are you trying to portray Cameron, like the Cameron that everybody's known? Or are you trying to portray this Cameron character that was in the NFL that's gone and he's not coming back, right? And I think when I was finally able to accept that, it started my journey of growth to move beyond it and to start walking in a new path in my life. But it's tough, man, because nobody likes change.
It's definitely not. And it's hard when you have to, even harder to make that change when you have to do it alone, right? What would you say was some of the biggest factors that helped you make that transition and not backslide back to where you were?
I say number one was my faith, man, like faith in God. And I'm gonna be real with you. Like, I tell a lot of people this: when I got cut, I turned my back on God, because I was like, man, I did everything the right way. I've been living according to your word. Like, I just don't feel like I deserve this. Like, what's the point of being faithful when stuff like this happens to you? But when I turned my back on, he made things even worse for me. I was like, I hear you. You know what I'm saying? I was like, I hear you. So I really had to get into the word, man, and just looking at some of the scriptures, like James, man, James chapter 1, it says, blessed is the one who perseveres on the trial, because having withstood the test, he'll receive the crown of life for those promised, And it's like, man, blessed is the person who goes on a trial, who perseveres. I'm like, hold on now. You telling me the person who's actually going through the struggle is blessed? I was like, okay, let me look at my situation a little bit differently. That means that there's something in the struggle for me, right? But I'm looking at it as from the wrong perspective, because I'm looking at what's happening to me. And so coming across scriptures like that, Jeremiah 29:11, plans to prosper you, not to harm you. I'm like, oh, this is all a part of it, right? I might not like it right now, but there's a bigger picture that I can't see yet, right? And I can honestly say I'm getting closer and closer to that now that I've redirected my path and redirected my focus. But faith was definitely the primary thing in shifting my perception. And of course, family, close friends, like just building me up, reminding me that, hey, you're more than a football player, right? Your life transcends that sport. So just hearing things like that, just focusing on a transcendent why, I think that's the biggest thing that anybody can create in their life, is like a reason for living that's bigger than them. Because when you have a transcendent why, when you don't feel like doing something, you don't think about yourself anymore. You think about what you're doing it for, right? So for me, my transcendent why is leaving a legacy for those behind me to follow, right? I'm talking about people I don't even know. I'm talking about the kids I haven't had yet. I'm talking about the players that I might coach one day. Like any young African-American man, or even any young man, woman, it don't matter, race or whatever. Like, I want to leave a legacy that they can follow, to understand that whatever they want to achieve in life is possible. And if I want to do that, then I don't have time to get stuck in my emotions. Like I can feel what I feel, but I can't get stuck in my emotions. And so that transcendent why drives me every single day. When I don't feel like doing something, it's like, nah, that's not going to leave a legacy, right? That's not the kind of legacy you want to leave. And so I think that was huge for me.
Man, I like that, a transcendent why. Well, you go ahead, dog. Hey.
Transcendent why, man. You gotta have it.
Dropping gems on here. Hey, so what about, mentorship, right? Because, now you're adjusting to a completely different profession now, right? You went from, being a professional defensive back to now you're a professional military intelligence officer, right? Like that has a ton of differences. So including like, finding mentors. So like, did you have to find some good mentors to help you navigate this new world that you kind of just had to dive back into unexpectedly? Like it was one of those things where, it's always in the back of your mind. Like it could happen, but let's be honest. When we're in these competitive positions, the last thing we're thinking about is us not being the one to make it, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Nah, I mean, of course, our profiles, a lot of my profiles like poured into me, and that was good because they've been in the path that I'm going into. But I say when I got cut, I went to go TAD at the academy, and in the diversity, equity, and inclusion department, I was working for Captain Lacey, aviator, African American, head diversity guy at the academy, and he kind of helped get some of my bitterness away with the Navy before I really got back into the Navy. Like in that transitional phase, TAD, and before I went to Intel school, like he spoke a lot of positivity into my life, talked about a lot of his experiences in the military, the doors that is open for him, the opportunity that he's had to lead from the position that he's in. And that kind of realigned my focus with like, it's bigger than me. Like it's not just in football. It's not just outside of the military, but it's in the military as well. Like when you wear that uniform, especially as a minority, like your influence is huge, right? Like
it is.
You have the ability to impact so many people. And I feel like I'm taking that approach now. And I can definitely pick up a few more mentors, especially like within my community. But being out here, right, in Washington, I don't know anybody, right? Well, I didn't know anybody. Now I'm starting to meet more people. I only knew one guy out here. He was a 17 grad, Ty Dose. He was good for me during my transition period. Like he's been here for me. Appreciate him for that. But like this is really taking me out of my comfort zone to build relationships, build connections, provide mentorship, seek mentorship. So I definitely think that this is going to be huge for me to be willing to branch out more.
So, a lot of our dream is to get that big paycheck from the things that you've experienced. But, I know a little while ago you spoke about, kind of taking that burning passion to do one thing and shifting it to do another, right? Kind of walking in your purpose,
right,
if you will. And, for you, I mean, you have a proven track record of anything that you kind of put your hands on, you're going to be successful with, right? So now with your new journey, right? Like not only are you an officer in the military, right? But public speaking. So I want to talk about that a little bit, right? Because I think that's important. Like, even though you have your normal day job, right? I can't even call it a 9 to 5 because people don't understand the military really is 24 hours a day, especially as an officer. But, you have your normal day job.
Right.
But I don't think that has affected your view of yourself, of thinking like knowing your ability to still generate the amount of income that you want to earn, right? And for those of you who follow him on Instagram, and if not, I'm sure you will after this episode, but you'll see a lot of the impactful stuff that he puts out there, with public speaking and stuff. So can you talk about what's driven your passion for that, and how you've come about like kind of developing what you try to teach people?
Right, most definitely. And I believe in life, like sometimes you go through things to learn lessons for other people, right? And if you don't have that perspective, then you could be holding on to a lesson that could save somebody else's life, that can help them get out of a situation, that can help them achieve something that you honestly weren't able to achieve yourself. But it takes humility. It takes looking outside of your own bubble. to be able to do that. And so even at the age of 23, I feel like I've learned so many lessons in my life and encountered different adversities and adversity, and been able to overcome adversity and develop a mindset that's made me realize, like, yo, anything is possible. I'm a strong believer that anything is possible. Impossible is an opinion, right? So anything is possible. But you have to really strengthen your mentality and your perception. And so the new platform that I'm shifting towards is having a victorious vision for your life, right? And a victorious vision has 3 different components to it, right? First, you got to have faith. Like, you got to believe that it's going to happen. Because if you never believe that something will happen, it won't happen. And when you believe something won't happen, it won't happen, right? Like, the power of thought is so real. And people don't realize that thought creates their reality. And so when you have faith and you believe it's happening, right? You can believe it's happening, it gets the vision started. The next step is to take action. You got to take action to get the vision to go. Because a lot of people look at motivation, inspiration, affirmations. They're like, oh, that's just talk, right? You don't need that. You just got to go do it. Yes and no, right? Like, yes, all that stuff is talk if you never take action. But you might never take action if you don't have that motivation, right? So I look at motivation, inspiration. That's the gas going into the car to make the car be able to go. Action is actually pressing the pedal. But you can't make the car go forward if you don't have any gas, right? And so when we're looking at the victorious vision, you got faith that it's going to happen. You believing in yourself, telling yourself that it's possible. You take the action to make it happen. That last piece is the piece that I feel like doesn't get preached enough, and it's character. You got to have character to carry the vision. You got to have character to keep the vision alive, because character is who you are when your back is up against the wall. Martin Luther King said it best: the true measure of a man is not where he stands in times of comfort and convenience, but where he stands in the times of adversity, right? That's who you truly are. And so you can have all the motivation, inspiration, you can have all the action, but if you don't have the character, as soon as you hit one roadblock, it's over, right? You're not going to be able to get over the hump. Or even worse, you start to experience the success and you do what I did, right? When I got to the spotlight, and you change your character and you become somebody who you weren't before, and now you can't handle the success and it gets taken away. And so that victorious vision, those 3 components, creating a victorious vision for your life, it's fueled by that concept that I just talked about, a transcendent why. Because when you have a transcendent why, faith is easier to have because you're believing in something that's bigger than you. Action is easier to do because now you're doing it for something that's bigger than you. And character is also easy to do because you got to set the example for something that's bigger than you. And so the transcendent why fuels that vision. And so that's my passion, is helping people understand that, because I truly feel like that's the key for you to be successful and achieve what you want to achieve. And the younger that you're able to get that, the easier, I'm not going to say the easier life is going to be, but the more you're going to be able to handle life. Because truth be told, I don't want my life to be easy, right? I don't want my life to be easy. There's nothing good that comes from easy. But when something's hard, for one, you go through the process and you honestly care for it more. When you get the result, you appreciate it a lot more, and you learn the process. And when you learn the process, you understand the process and the different components. And now when you see adversity, when you see difficulties, you're not viewing it as what's happening to you. You're viewing it as what's happening for you. So the more I can get people to understand that and like try to help use my story to help people see that vision, man, I ain't got to do nothing else.
I'm telling you right now, I think that's truly inspirational, right? And that's something that's huge. Like, this is, of course, we talk a lot about personal finance, but this is a huge piece of personal finance, right? And one of the things you spoke about that I like is, I don't know if you read the book. It's called The 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth by John Maxwell. And one of the chapters in there is called The Law of the Rubber Band. And he talks about how in order for you to grow as a person, you have to stretch yourself. Right. And it talks about and a rubber band is of no use to anyone until it's in a stretched position. Right. Like, it's holding a block of holding newspapers, or wrapped around someone's bun, whatever it is, it's not of use until it's stretched. So, I mean, if you think about it even more, how do muscles grow? You stretch them, right? Like, it's all these different things that there's all these signs that show us that, hey, we have to stretch. But, a lot of people like to operate in a in a realm of comfortability.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, people don't realize that in comfortability, there is no growth, right? You kind of, you stay stagnant. And then, you know, when you're stagnant, you're not, you know, how you say, you use your fuel example, right? Like kind of operating in comfortability is like once the gas runs on E, you keep expecting the car to crank up.
Exactly.
You know?
And it's crazy because people operate in that comfortable situation because there is no failure, right? There is no failure. There is no being wrong. There is no not making it. And it gives you a false sense of confidence when you're comfortable. But like you just said, it's in those uncomfortable situations that we experience the most growth. And so if you look at any successful person, like any successful person, they've mastered the skill of being comfortable, being uncomfortable.
That's our Marine Corps saying.
Comfortable being uncomfortable, right? Like you look at Kobe Bryant, he said, I knew the workouts are going to suck. I knew it. But he said, I knew if I quit, then I was never going to get better. And so he just embraced it. He got comfortable being in those uncomfortable situations. And then, I mean, he's one of the greatest basketball players of all time. But a lot of people just think it's going to happen overnight. So like you said, that rubber band example is huge. Like you're not going to be useful until you get stretched, until you are uncomfortable. Yeah.
So with the growth aspect, right? So when it comes like personal finance, like, you know, there's a lot of people who feel like, hey, you know, I come from a family that never has been financially free. Like we all carry debt, like no one has the knowledge, and, you know, they kind of just feel like they can never even be a person that can experience things like financial freedom and you know, being able to do things without worrying about, is this bill going to get paid, or living the paycheck to paycheck. But I think that a huge part of that is kind of the framework you just laid out, right? And is, you know, one, you have to believe that you can do it
100%.
And, you know, kind of like you said with the mindset, like your mindset, people don't, I'll reiterate, people do not understand how powerful our minds are. Right. And if you tell yourself you can, you will. If you tell yourself you can't, you won't. Right. And, you know, a lot of people, I think one of the issues that a lot of people look for validation from other people about whether or not they think they can be successful, when the issue is that the only person that can decide if you're going to be successful at the end of the day, whether it's being financially free, in relation, whatever it is, you, right? You have ultimate deciding, or, you know, decision-making power when it comes to your success. And until people have heard that enough to believe it, you know, it's going to be hard. And there's multiple parts to that, right? Because in order for a lot of people to be able to gain that confidence, what do they need? They need people that can instill confidence in them. And there's a lot of people who I've met people, and it's sad, man. I talk about this all the time, but I've met people. I remember one day I was telling someone like, hey, you did this and this. Like, I'm very proud of you. Like, you know, this and you need to do this next. And they're like, you know, this is the first time anyone ever told me that they were proud of me. What? And like, well, who do you hang out with? Like, who do you spend time with? And you realize that people are in these negative environments all the time, to where, you know, they 5 years ago, oh man, I can do this. And their circle discouraged them from taking an opportunity to do something better. And now they're even in half the time in an even worse place, because they fell into thinking like the other people, and they felt like, you know, and then they don't find groups that can be beneficial to them. Right. It's like, oh, well, I can't ask these people. I'm going to be a burden. Oh, they don't have time. Like I needed help, but I didn't ask you. Right. One of the things I tell people all the time is, hey, when they be like, hey, I was like, yo, how long you been dealing with this? Oh, well, you know, it's been, you know, 3-4 months. Why are you just calling me now? Well, I just know you're busy, and I didn't want to, you know, waste your time. And one thing I tell people all the time is, hey, that's not your decision to make.
Right.
Let me decide if I have the time or not. And if I don't have the time at that moment, you can guarantee that I'll have a time and a date set for us to speak. But don't rob me of the opportunity to share what I have. Like, I don't have this information, this knowledge, this ability to imbue, you know, belief into people that they can be better than where they are, or they can achieve greater things, if I don't get the opportunity to share it. Right. But, you know, if you know that you need it, don't rob yourself of the opportunity either. If someone tells you no, or they can't do it, or they're not helping, okay, cool. You just go to the next person. You have to just go and figure it out. But, you know, a lot of people, like, it goes back to that fear of failure. That was one of my biggest things. Like, I'd say that's out of a list of of things, the fear of failure was probably one of the largest for years on mine. But it's because, I got two little brothers. Like, I have to be successful. My mom believes I'm be successful. I have to be successful. My friends see me as an executor. I got to be successful. And it's a lot of pressure, especially as a man. We're expected to succeed, like to have the answers, to lead, to make decisions, and to make things happen. But unfortunately and fortunately, when it comes to the world where you have to make decisions, whether it's on your own life or on the life as an officer, on the lives of behalf of others, sometimes you're gonna make the wrong decision and things aren't gonna go the way you want it to. But I truly believe that the key difference maker for a person that's perceived as successful and a person that's perceived as a failure is how they react to the failure.
Yeah.
Right. So if you see that failure as, oh, well, that just shows that I can't do it, and you quit every time, well, you're never going to see success because you haven't continued pushing, right? Like, everybody didn't just step on the bench one day and bench 315 pounds, right? You had to work towards that. There were times where that bar fell in your chest and somebody had to pick it back up off of you, right? And it's the same thing. Like, but you have to, I tell people too that I equate it to being able to, how can you ask an effective question to move you forward if you don't know where you are?
Awareness.
So you being aware and oh man, all of this stuff.
You just hit on so many different. I mean, I'm trying to keep it compartmentalized in my head.
I know.
So many different things. Number one, he who says he can and he who says he can't are usually both right, right? And so you talk about people who say, I can't do that, I can't do it. Like, look, if you say you can't, you can't. It goes back to the power of thought. And then you talked about environment. Environment directly influences thought, right? And sometimes people are in an environment that they don't have control over, right? And you come into the world in that environment. There's some people like that. And so you have to become aware that your environment directly affects what you think, right? Because when you do that, you can understand that, okay, a lot of these thoughts I think are because this is all I see. Maybe I should start looking for different things if I want to change what I think, right? And that's when you start intentionally planting those seeds in your, like, you look at an Oprah Winfrey, a Tyler Perry, Steve, you know what I'm saying? Like the examples are countless of people who have been in these situations and just made it up in their mind, you know what, that's not going to be me. I don't know how, I don't know when, but I am going to take control over my life and say, that's not going to be me. And then that next step is taking action, right? You got to go get the resources, and we got to go pour in the resources to those people that do want better. The other thing, failure, right? We talked about validation. I think validation is one of the main reasons that people fear failure, because failure is what somebody else says about your life.
Yep.
Right. Like you look at yourself as a failure when somebody says that you're a failure. When somebody says that you came up short, when somebody says that you aren't good enough, now you're a failure. But when you stop relying on the validation of other people to determine who you are as a person, truth be told, there's not really failure. It's learning, right?
Exactly.
Because I'm not trying to check the box for you. I'm not trying to check the box for you. So when I do come short, it's like, okay, what can I learn? How can I regroup? Let's go at it again, right? Because every time you get that no, that's one step closer to the next yes, right?
Failing
every closed
forward.
door is one. Exactly. Like, you're going to get there. You just got to keep going, got to keep believing and block out the noise. But that fear of failure is major, man. Like, it stopped. And honestly, it almost stopped me from even trying to go to the NFL, right? Because I let some of my coaches, I let some of my teammates, some of the media, I let all that influence me into almost thinking I wasn't good enough to go play. And then all it took was for my dad and my little brother to be like, you can make it happen. You don't want that regret. And I said, let's do it. And you know what I'm saying? Like, I always think back to that moment over Christmas break, being in the garage working out with them. I'm like, man, what if I would have never decided to try to go to the NFL? I wouldn't know it. I personally, honestly, would not have this mindset right now. Like, that's just the truth. Because I would have never went through those trials to even learn it, to even seek it. I would have just been comfortable, would have went second semester at the academy my senior year, probably just would have coasted through academically, had some fun, graduated, commissioned as an officer, just go through my traditional pipeline. You know what I'm saying? Like none of these lessons would have been learned, all because I would have been scared of what other people were going to say if I came up short.
So, you know, this is an interesting perspective, right? So this is let me see how to ask this question. So do you feel that your exposure to the NFL increased your awareness that success was more possible for you? Like just being in that environment and operating there, it's like, wow, I've done this once, I could do this again, and it could be on my own terms this time.
Yeah, 100%. I would say, so I mean, me personally, I moved beyond the playing days of football, right? Like I think I probably will end up coaching one day, but playing days, for me, football was to get me into the best school possible for free, so my parents didn't have to pay. Once I got to college, everything else was a bonus. Being team captain, playing, starting, bonus. Making it to the NFL, bonus. Like, you know what I'm saying? So that was what it was. But that journey proved to me, hey, when you set your mind to something, you can make it happen. Because we're talking less than 2%, right? Yep. And we're talking about a guy at the Naval Academy, never all conference. I lost my starting job my senior year halfway through the season. So we're looking at, I played really 6 full games my senior season, not on any draft boards. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm literally unknown. And then I end up signing an NFL contract with the defending Super Bowl champions. Less than 2%, all because I made up in my mind, number one, I'm gonna make this happen, right? And I don't care what the paper got to say. I don't care what anybody else got to say. Like, I'm gonna make this happen. I can do it, right? Put my faith in God. I'm like, yo, I'm gonna make this happen. I was expecting it. I was believing it. I was spending time in the morning visualizing my name being called, visualizing being in the NFL locker room, being on the NFL practice field, being in the NFL state. Like, I'm literally visualizing this stuff in the morning, right? The next step was I took immediate action. Like, I went to work, took care of my body, meal prep, working out daily, stretching, you know what I'm saying? Like, locked in every single day. And then the opportunity came and I took advantage of it. I think a lot of people say luck, right? Oh, he just had a lot of luck. I believe you create luck, right? And you create luck through expectation, opportunity, and preparation. Because if you never expect for it to happen, if you never prepare for it to happen, then when the opportunity comes, you won't even know that it's an opportunity and you won't take advantage of it. And so I just believe a mix of all that, going through that journey, definitely showed me like, yo, whatever I want to do in life, I'm going to do. Right. And that's not me being cocky. It's not me being overconfident. It's just because, like, why not? I want to do something. Why not make it happen?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, who's to tell me that I can't do it? Now, there's going to be some things I got to do to make it happen, right? Nobody's just going to hand it to me. But if I want to go make something happen, yo, if I truly want it, I will go do it. And that's how I feel about anything that I want to do in life, right? But yeah, that journey definitely taught me that. Definitely taught me that.
That's huge, because, you know, people who do so, I want to become this. We're just going to use financially free. I using that all the time, but you know, because that is a huge dream for a lot of people, but having the dream is just the first part of it. But even what you just said, the second part is you had to get active, right? Like, you can't say you want to be financially free and, like you said, you started caring about what you're putting in your body, right? Like, well, all of those things also tying together there, because you cared about what you put in your body, your grocery bill goes down. You ain't spending $200 on snacks on top of everything else, right? Like, now you start to focus on where you're going. Well, I'm not going to the club because the club I drink, well, I don't need that, right? Like, and it's like, so even from that perception, like, hey, are you filling your budget out daily? Are you keeping track of what you're spending? Are you saying that you budget and just waiting till the end of the month to go in and put what you spent? Or are you actively tracking each day so that you can make the necessary adjustments to make sure that you're hitting your numbers, right? Like, what are your goals? Are you putting it into actionable pieces? Or are they vague, like being financially free? What does that mean? That means something different for everyone else, right? You might have a couple credit cards to pay off. You might have a vehicle to pay off. You might just have a student loan. You know, you might just want to have $30,000, you know, in an emergency fund so that you can then focus on travel. You know, like, you have, but no, people, along with getting the goal, you got to break that down into actionable pieces.
Yeah. And I think what you're like, one big thing you're hitting on is like, everybody just wants that instant success. Everybody wants the instant gratification. They want it They say, yo, I want this, snap the fingers, and it happens, right? But they don't understand, like, overnight success, it came from years of preparation, right? And I think the longer, especially when it comes to being financially free, and this is something I constantly have to remind myself, it's like delayed gratification, right? You got to have the discipline to say, you know what, I don't need to upgrade this meal to a large. Even though it just says it's 80 cents, I don't need to do that.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Yep. Matter of fact, I don't even need to be in this fast food line at all. I got food at the house, right?
Yep.
And I think that's that discipline. And a lot of people think like being financially free, being wealthy, being rich, they think it all starts with money. And I think that's the issue.
Yeah.
If you never do the inner work, if you never do the mind work, then you will never be financially free. I don't care how much money you got, you will not be financially free because you're not going to know how to manage the money. You're not going to know how to approach it. And honestly, you're probably going to have character flaws that make you get rid of the money quick. Like everybody looks at the Powerball statistics, right? People who win the lottery, like I can't remember the specific number, but they go broke
over 50%.
like that.
It's over 50%. It's over 50%.
Yeah, they go broke, right? And it's because they never took the time to learn what to do with the money. They never took the time to master discipline, master delayed gratification. You know, like the things that require no money that you can do right now. It don't require no money, right? But a lot of people don't believe it. They think it's fluff. They think it's just talk. And they're like, whatever, that's not real. You know what I'm saying? And what I've started to do is separate myself from people with those mindsets, right? Not because I don't care about them, but because, like I said, environment directly impacts your thinking.
Absolutely.
And I'm not going to allow negativity to filter into my mind. Now, on the flip of that, I'm going to still put the messages out there about things you need to do, right? Whether you want to grasp on to that or not, it's on you. But when I do have a person who's like, hey, I'm really struggling, but I want to get to the point to where I can perceive the world in a better perspective. All right, let's talk. Let's do it. You know what I'm saying? But if you're just going to be negative, man, be Debbie Downer, don't nobody want you in their presence.
Yeah, nah.
Like, somebody who always tells you why something won't work, it's like, all right, I'm cool.
You got to get them out of here.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you got it. But yeah, like people want to be financially free, but they won't change their habits. It's like they want the result, they want the reward without the work. And that's just not how life works.
You know, that's true too, because, you know, one of the things that I try to push, especially on like social media now, is you have to become the person worthy of achieving the goals that you have prior to becoming that person. There's a misconception that once you achieving the goal will turn you into the person that you want to be, right? Whereas that needs to be flipped, right? You have to become that person prior to achieving the goal, because how can you be financially free if you're still the person popping bottles every weekend and buying every new Jordan that comes out? Like, because that financially free version of you doesn't care about those things. They're not focused on that. They're focused on, hey, my baseline is covered. What matters to me? What are my values? What are my priorities? All right. How does these align? All right. How do I set myself up for the future? Okay. They're not putting their values on materialistic things. They're putting them on, you know, relationships, experiences, things that a lot of times have zero monetary value. Like, you could take a trip or something, like, that costs, but like, you can do that. You know, it's the difference between taking a trip because you can and building experiences, and taking a trip and coming back and worrying about you're going to pay off this debt that you didn't have no business, you know, taking care of. Right. So I think that's a huge thing for people to understand, is that you have to become that person before you will ever see the results. Because if you don't, and say you do become successful maintaining the same habits you have, like you said, it ain't long until you run back into the same situation. You can become financially free, but the problem is, because you haven't worked on yourself, it's not going to be long before that credit card debt starts running back up. That emergency fund that's supposed to be there for emergencies is half where it was, you know, and you haven't had an emergency yet, you know, like, and all these different things pop up, and it's like, wow, how did this happen?
Exactly.
There's no, you know, one, you didn't engineer, you didn't engineer an environment that would allow you to be successful. Right. And I like to say engineering, because you just like you've seen here, like we create an environment that will allow people to be successful. Right? We build it, like, and you have to do the same thing. Engineering, you cut things, you build things, and you know what I'm saying? But you got to put it together to help you. But, you know, I think another piece to all this too is, you know, we talk a lot about people bringing value to us. But when you become a person worthy of doing these special things, you focus more on adding value to others, because a lot of people will think of what are people going to do for me, but they're knowing like, hey, how are you going to expect people to build in and pour into you, and you're not building and pouring into anybody else?
Exactly. Like, it's a book. It's a Japanese book. It's called like Ikigai. I probably said that wrong, but it talks about like just the secrets to living a long, fulfilling life. And it interviews a lot of the Japanese people who have like some of the longest lifespans in the world. And like one of the biggest things that they talk about is service to others. Like they're like living a life service to others, because I think honestly, that's where the best fulfillment comes from. Like if you're a successful person, it's not even, if you're just enjoying that all yourself, it's not going to be as rewarding as you think. But when you start pouring into the lives of others and helping other people get to where you got, you know, like that's where you really start feeling the fulfillment and the fruit of your labor. So I definitely think that's key, especially in our community. Like that's what we got to do more of, is like instead of just focusing on the negative and being like, oh, they're just going to be like that because they from this neighborhood. It's like who made that a law? You know what I'm saying? Like who decided that? Like at what point do we decide that? Like how about, especially people who've been from the neighborhood, right? Who got it out, who made it out and are successful. How about they go back, right? How about welcoming people who may not have been in that neighborhood, but have some valuable things to contribute? How about welcoming them in instead of discrediting them because they didn't go through that struggle, right? And I think we have to focus on that in our community if we want to see generational success, generational legacy. You know, if we want to start seeing a shift in our community. And to rewind a little bit, like what you're saying about like not putting in that preparation, right, for that moment, like that's key. Like you got to prepare for who you want to be, right? Like if you say you want to be the greatest teacher of all time, I don't care if you're in high school, like you should be looking at, what does a lesson plan look like? How do I develop a lesson plan? Like what do students, you know what I'm saying? Like, because when that moment comes, the opportunity comes, you need to be ready for it. You don't get ready when the opportunity is there. You don't become financially free when you get a lot of money, right? You become financially free by managing what you have right now. And then when you do come across the opportunity to get a lot of money, it's like, oh, snap. Like you know what I'm saying? Like
I know what to do with it now.
I'm good now. Exactly. But if you never put that work in, you could come across $10,000 and you know you could pay off that $8,000 credit card. You think you're going to pay it off? Nope. Because you got money now.
That's spending money.
You got money now. That's spending money. You just going to keep paying a monthly bill, right? Not knowing that stuff's compounding over time. And next thing you know, you look up, you ain't got nothing now. You like, oh, snap, where that 10,000 go? And I still got a credit card bill.
Quick. Nothing to show for it.
Exactly. You got nothing to show for it. But I'm so big on that preparation piece because like people always ask, like, how did I become such a good speaker? And like, truth be told, I had a speech impediment when I was a kid, right? And I stuttered and I couldn't pronounce certain sounds, still struggle pronouncing some sounds. But I went from public school to private school in second grade. And like all of the kids were making fun of the way that I talked and the way that I would say certain things. And like, I was tired of it. And so every day when I got home, I would just speak in the mirror. You know what I'm saying? Like whether it was reading a book or like even in class, I read out loud, like the repetition. And I speak in the mirror, pretend I'm speaking in front of big audiences, right? Like knowing that one day I'm going to be a powerful speaker. I'm literally telling myself this when I'm in second, third, fourth grade. And now today it's clockwork, right? And I say that with all humility, but like you put a microphone in front of me, like I'm going to have your attention, right? Yeah. And that's just from years of working on the bad speaking habits that I had. And so when the opportunity finally came for me to get put at my class graduation and I'm delivering the commencement speech to my class, like I didn't get ready for that moment the night before, weeks before, man. That was years of preparation and reaping the result. And now I was like, okay, let's take it up a notch, right? But I think everybody just thinks like magically one day they're gonna wake up and they're just gonna be that person. Like no.
Yeah, that's
like that's just not how it works, man.
It doesn't work like that, you know. And that preparation piece is key. And I like that you talked about, you know, that was years in preparation, right? It started with you believing that you would be able to do it, and then the subsequent actions that followed all ensured that when that moment came, you'd be prepared for it.
Exactly.
So, you know, oh man, there's so many good points on here today. Like,
we done dropped a lot of nuggets in this episode, man.
I know,
a lot of nuggets, man.
This,
because I think like my biggest thing about, and I'm learning this about my personal finances, is like always looked at finances as like a money thing, right? Like literally like a dollar, like currency. But it's way more than that, man.
Yeah.
Like
Yep.
it's like your values, because your values will determine your behaviors and your habits, and that's where your spending is going. It's more than swiping a card, but it's like it's you thinking you need something because you lack discipline or because you're trying to impress somebody else. It's like when you are able to finally get a control over that, you'll see a big shift in your finances, and you'll be like, did I get a pay raise? You know what I mean? You realize, oh, I got a lot more money when I cut all this other stuff out. And then like you come across more money. Now it's like, oh snap, like, okay, like it's just it blows your mind when you start realizing, a paycheck isn't the reason why some people, right? A paycheck isn't the reason why I'm not financially free. It's my spending habits. Of course, there are some people who are in financial struggles, but I'm more so speaking of the people that we know, that I know make enough, right? But it's like, look at where you spending the money.
Yeah. And I that piece of the inner self is huge. And that's why the name of my first book is The End of Smoker Mindset. Is because, through my research, building this company and putting all these things together, I really realized that it was your mindset and who you were internally that would decide your success or your ability to be successful with, taming your finances. And, if you're a prideful person, if you don't like asking for help, if you don't see an issue and, you wait for somebody else to give you the answer instead of seeking it out, all of these things come into play very quickly. Like, are you living above your means? Typically people who live above their means, that's directly tied to how they want the world to perceive them. Right. Like, if I'm a single male, could I buy, a 3,000 square foot home? Yeah. Do I need a 3,000 square foot home? No. You know what I'm saying? Like, so it's little things like that. Towards like, for me, y'all know, I'm not trying to impress anybody. I drive a 2011 vehicle that I've been driving since I got it in college. Right. And I'm gonna drive it till it don't work anymore. And people come to me, why you don't buy a new car? You need a new car. For what, bro? It does what it needs to do. It gets me where I need to go when I need to go there. Point A to point B. That's it. Like, no one's ever, said, I'm not getting in this car because this is 2011. You know what I'm saying? Like, and if they did, I'd say cool, and I'd swerve off. Cool. You know what I'm talking about?
Hey,
like, you know what I'm saying? Cool. I'll see you when you get there. Like, but it's making I feel like one of the simplest ways to sum it up would be, you have to decide to make yourself the priority. And, stop prioritizing what other people think. Stop prioritizing how, other people feel. Stop prioritizing what other people tell you should do. Right. Because that's another part of it too, is I think a lot of people need to sit down and I was having a conversation probably about a week or two ago, and we spoke about how one of the things that people need to do is sit down and go through the beliefs that they currently have, right? Identify who gave where did those beliefs come about? Were they taught to them? Were they learned somehow? And then once they figure out what those beliefs are, researching to figure out if those beliefs are valid or if they need to figure out what the truth is, right? Because there's a lot of people that grow up right now thinking that credit is terrible. No, credit is a tool, and if you used it incorrectly, it's terrible, right? A sledgehammer can be useful, or I can make it very dangerous, right? Like, it's all about how you use the tool. And if I'm not trained to use a saw and I'm using it, that cut isn't going to be good as a person that was actually trained to do it, right? And I tell you things like budgets, all that stuff, that those are tools. And you have a lot of people say, oh, well, budgeting doesn't work for me. Well, I'd argue that you're not using the tool properly. The budgeting itself there's no way that budgeting doesn't work, and these big Fortune 500 companies don't eat, breathe, or sleep without going through their budget, right? There's nothing operating. So if they're maintaining them, what makes us, and I'm going to maintain mine very efficiently, So I think those are big pieces too. Like, what you think about that?
Nah, that's facts, man. Like, it's crazy. But a budget, I would be interested to see the statistics behind how many people keep a budget, because I think it's underestimated how useful that can be, especially for people who want to be financially free. It's like, how do you say that, but you don't even know where your money's going?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like how
Yeah.
can you even say that and not know where your money's going? But yeah, like you said about prioritizing yourself, right? I think it goes even a step beyond that. Prioritizing who you want to be. You
Yeah,
know what I'm
absolutely.
saying?
Yep.
And you can't prioritize who you want to be if you've never thought about it. And so I challenge everybody, man, like take some time and truly think about the person that you want to be. Like think about the life you want to live, the family you want to have, the job you want to have. You know what I'm saying? Like you got to truly think about that, visualize it, and then, okay, what is it going to take for me to get there?
Yeah.
Because like, if you don't know where you're going, if you don't have a vision, then you're kind of aimlessly walking, right? You're kind of figuring things out, which is fine. Like some people go about life like that and they just start figuring it out. But when you have a directed focus, you can intentionally align things in your life to get you to where you want to go. And I'm not even talking about a specific occupation. I'm talking about a specific lifestyle that you want to live. And then things start aligning. You're like, yeah, that's not going to get me to where I want to go.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? That opportunity will help. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
That meeting with that person probably might get me into this room that I need to get into. I can't go spend time with them. That's not, you know what I'm saying? Like you start intentionally aligning your behaviors and your patterns of life and your habits. And now you're prioritizing who you want to be. You're prioritizing yourself. And 5-10 years from now, when everybody else is still figuring it out, you live in that lifestyle because you took advantage of your energy right now instead of aimlessly walking. You directed that energy and that focus. So now I think that sums it up perfectly. Like you just got to prioritize who you want to be and have the discipline to stick to that path for sure.
Yeah, and you talk about going aimlessly. So I have this reference. Like I'm a Marine, so I like to use some of those references sometimes. But I equate it to if you get dropped off in the middle of a forest, right? You're not just going to start walking aimlessly in any direction,
no.
right? Because you can end up in the wrong direction. What do? You need your map and your compass, and the first thing you have to do is what? Figure out where you are. I think way too many people, especially when it comes to finances, they don't like to acknowledge where they are, and they just try to start going somewhere, right? And it's like, yo, how do you know you're not going in the wrong direction? How do you know that where you're going right now isn't going to lead you off a 300-foot cliff?
Yeah.
Right. You have to sit down, really accept the fact that, like, hey, I have to sit down, look where I'm at. I have to be comfortable where I'm at. But now, because I know where I'm at, now I can decide where to go. And it'll be a lot more beneficial for you because now hey, I'm here. I need to go here. Here's the steps that I could put in place. But you can't do that without at first orienting yourself.
Where you are. And like, what I'm saying, one of my favorite rappers, J. Cole,
from Fayetteville, you know what I'm saying?
Shout out to the Bill. But he said, he got the song Love Yours on Forest Hills Drive, you know what I'm saying? It's basically like love the life that you live in, right? And I think that also ties into what you just said. It's like, know where you're living right now, know where you are right now, know what you have, be aware of all that, love that in the moment. And then he says a verse in there, and it says, the good news is you came a long way. The bad news is you went the wrong way.
You went the wrong way.
And I think if you never acknowledge where you are right now, then you can move in a direction that has you think you're making progress. And then you look up and you're like, oh, snap, this ain't even where I want to go. You know what I'm saying? Like, congrats, you made a lot of progress, but now you got to get back to where you were, then go, you know what I'm saying? Like, it makes it harder for you. So, that's true. And it's uncomfortable. And it's, it takes humility to just look in the mirror and be like, okay, yeah, this is where I am. This is what I have. This is what I don't have. Like, this is where I can improve. Okay, now let's move forward. But if you never take that opportunity to look in the mirror and be honest with yourself, it's going to be hard to make change. It is. It's going to be hard to make change, man.
It is. And, another thing, too, is I always tell people, when you set goals for yourself, make it known. Like, if whoever you spend time with, let them know, hey, I can't do this for this X amount of time because my goal is to pay off this $20,000 in debt. Right now, with the plan I have is going to take, 8 months, whatever it is. I still want to, be involved. However, I'd prefer to find ways that we could do this. This wants me to jeopardize my goals.
Exactly.
Right. Like now, maybe instead of going to brunch out at a restaurant, y'all do brunch at the crib. Now everybody puts in some money now what it costs $5-10 for everybody to eat. You know what I'm saying?
More food. You're gonna get more food and more mimosa.
And you know what I'm saying? And it's like, and you build more memories because now everybody's together. You're not in a restaurant. You have to do stuff like it's just so much. But you know, that just calls being creative and being dedicated to your cause.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I definitely agree. Yeah. And then the other part of that, like, if you tell your friends your goals and they're not willing to support you, then you probably got the wrong friends.
But that shows you, see now, but because you told them, now it's easier to make a decision. You know, It's hard to get mad at somebody for going against something that you never told them existed. It's a lot easier to make a decision when you said, hey, my goal is this, and you consistently try to be a roadblock. Yo, you got to go.
Yeah. I don't need you. I don't need you in my circle, man. You ain't helping me get to where I want to go. I don't need you, right? Like I said, environment impacts your thought, which impacts your reality. And so if you got for your friends telling you don't need to do something, guess what? You're probably not going to do it.
Yeah, that's
you know, like we're not as strong as we think we are as individuals. That's just the truth. We're influenced every single day. But if you don't become aware of those influences, man, they can overtake your life.
Yeah, quickly and extremely negatively. So, you know, that's big. And, you know, part of it just takes making decision to stand for something different, right? It's hard to be the one person out of the group to be like, hey, you know what? I want to do this. Like, I'm going to do this. And I know that this is something that needs to happen. Oh, why you want to do that? Anybody did that before, bro? What are you tripping? And it's like, nah, you've done the research. You know that this is where you need to go. Like, so instead of sticking around these people, taking advice from people who haven't done what you've done, start looking at finding people who live the life that you want. Start finding, you know, go find a guy who's a good father to figure out how to be a good father. You know, go find someone who's a good mother to figure out how to be a good mother. Go find someone who's financially free to tell you, you know, how they adopted it. Go find, you know, if you're a single mom and you're trying to be financially free, find a single mom that's financially free. See what she did, you know, like ask for help, you know, seek, you know, one of the things is this just leads me to something else. So another thing too, so, you know, having conversations with some people, I talk about how people will spend $200 on a pair of shoes, right? That will add no value to them after, you know, a week after purchasing. Whereas opposed if you say, hey, you should buy this $200 course. Now $200 for a course, even though this $200 course can literally, you know, accelerate you to complete whatever goal you are. They don't see it as oh, well, this isn't a now thing, right? Like I get this and I get to experience, I get to put these nice shoes on my feet now. I get to put this, but it's like, yo, that's not how that works. It's not how that works.
The other thing is people ain't gonna see that course. They'll see the shoes. They ain't gonna see the course. So it's like, I don't want to spend money on something. You know what I'm saying? Like people, but you got to be willing to invest in yourself if you want other people to even invest in you, right? Yes. It's like, I'm not about to work with anybody that don't invest in them. But the thing is, and like, I heard Eric Thomas talking about this with college. He was saying like, he gets why some people talk about free college, but he said at the same time, it's like, it means something more when you pay for it, right? When you spending money on something, it means something more. That's just the truth. You pay for something, and it's funny. Like my dad, he used to always be tripping out when we was growing up because like we'll be tearing the house up, right? Tearing the couch up, tearing the walls up, drilling stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
It don't mean
it's boys. It's boys.
Exactly. Yep. And he'll be like, you'll see one day. Now I got my own little apartment. I see anything. I'm like, hold on, where that come from? You know what I'm saying?
Now the pops from Everybody Hates Chris makes so much more sense.
You feel me? I'm like, yo, it's a whole different story when it's your money going into it, man. I'm telling you.
You know, but that's the way to have buy-in. You know, that's another thing I want just to emphasize with people is, yo, invest in yourself. You know, stop looking at material things. Start looking at things that'll make you invest in your mental growth. Invest in your financial knowledge, you know, invest in whatever, you know, if your job, you know, if you're trying to be better, invest in your knowledge to become better in the job. If you know to get a promotion, you need, you know, to meet XX requirements, invest in yourself to make sure that you can meet those requirements. Like, you know, it's all these things, just investing in yourself has so much potential, right? Like if people say, oh, well, I ain't gonna see money from it. Like, yeah, that investment, that $200 ain't going to turn into 2 million, right? But not necessarily, but through the things that you learn and implement within your life, you will be able to. And I think part of the misconception with investing in yourself is a lot of people do things like take courses and they read these books and they just take them and read them and it just stays here. the key part to investing in yourself and, getting these educational purposes, getting things that teach you is applying it after you learn it. That's the piece that's missing. People just learn it to learn it and they don't apply it. Think about how many books you probably read in the past where there were exercises in the book to help you figure out how to get the thing that the book's for, and you just get past it. I did it for years. I did it. And then now, reading, whatever I'm doing, whether it's a book, an ebook, if it's just something I found online, I do the exercise. And it's crazy because through doing the exercises, it's helped me figure, like, I've drastically increased my ability to do stuff just through applying what I was learning. Now I'm not just learning just to say I did it. I'm not just reading to say, oh yeah, I read that book. Nah. Hey, here's what I learned, and here's how I'm actively applying it to my life, and here's how it helped me accelerate and grow.
Exactly. Nah, that's real, man. That's real. Because every step matters. Like, if people get anything from this podcast, I need them to understand that, like, you can't just do one step, right? You can't just take action. You can't just believe. You just, you know what I'm saying? Like, every single component matters. You got to believe, you got to prepare, and you got to take advantage of the opportunity, man. Like, if you want to be successful, that's point blank, period. And there's no shortcuts. And if there is a shortcut, you're going to end up where you started, because it ain't going to be, you know what I'm saying, it ain't going to mean as much. Nah, that's real, man. This episode has been enlightening me.
Hey, I love it. Hey, that's why I say real conversations with real people about money and everything in between, right? And when I say, this is actually cool too, because people think the kind of like personal finance is just talking about money itself,
right?
So many more pieces to it, and like everything you spoke about today, even you can tie it to whatever. Like, and so these conversations I think are extremely important. Once again, these are the conversations that I think people should be having within their households, like within their friend groups, because this is what drives thought and this is what drives change.
Yeah, 100%.
So before we wrap this up today, what if you got anything else that you would like to leave the listeners with?
Man, my last words for anybody listening to this podcast right now, everybody that's listening, think about the life that you want to live. Like, truly visualize your ideal life and think about that every morning when you wake up. I want you to think about who you want to be every morning when you wake up. And then as you're doing things throughout the day, think about whether or not those actions align with who you want to be. Simple starter right there. If you just do that for the matter of fact, let's just do it for 7 days. You know what I'm saying? 7 days, think about who you want to be, and then think about your actions and whether or not they're aligning with who you want to be. And by the end of that week, I'm curious to see what you think now. I'll be curious to see what they think. That's it for me.
Like doing a lifestyle audit.
Exactly. Just 7 days. You can do it. You got 7 days. I ain't even give you a 30-day challenge. 7 days. 7 days. Do that every day. Day.
So for the listeners who may want to get in touch with you, via just to ask questions or maybe to book you for a speaking engagement, etc. How would you like them to get in contact with you? Would it be Instagram?
Instagram, Twitter. I'm at CK3 The Thrill on all platforms. CK number 3 The Thrill, THRILL. That's on Instagram, Twitter. My TikTok finally getting some traction, so you can get on there too. Honestly, TikTok, I don't really be monitoring my TikTok like that. So Instagram, Twitter, email is crkinley, KINLEY @gmail.com. That's where you can send any like real business inquiries, because I see it on there before I see it on anything else.
Perfect. So I'll also put his information in the description. So for those of you who may want to get in contact with Cam, it'll be down there, so you can get his Instagram, his Twitter, his email, all from there, and reach out to him. Once again, I like to emphasize this: like, anybody that I have on this show is someone that I is vetted, they're certified, and I know that any information that they may help or any product that they put out is going to be one that you're going to be proud of and that they'll be proud of. We're all about helping people. So, I love being able to have other people come on here and express their ideas, because the only way we can learn is together. So that's all I got for you. I appreciate you all for listening. Let's get in the smoker.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
Thank you for listening to the Finance Bruh. If you feel like this episode has added value to you today, then please be sure to go to Amazon and purchase a copy of my book, The End the Smoker Mindset. You can also go to my website at www.endthesmoker.com and sign up for my budgeting course. You can also find more information on my financial coaching and credit repair services. And if you really want to help support the brand, you can also purchase some merchandise. Let people know what End the Smoker is about. All right. I hope to see you next week. Let's get in the smoker.